It is a mighty interesting Week 17 NFL DFS slate, in part because it is a short slate with a bunch of games being played outside of Sunday, but also not a lot of games with high totals on the 9 games available on this main slate. So pretty tough to dissect where we want to go for this week and identify the top plays for this week. We're going to break down our thoughts on the Week 17 NFL DFS slate, letting you know our top picks by position on FanDuel, studs to prioritize, games to stack, and much more to get you ready for Sunday's main slate. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is Jim Sannes. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every week. I typically say every Thursday, but it's Friday. Every week by Brandon Gdula. You can find him on X at Gdula13. Find him on Blue Sky at Gdula. He is a senior managing editor for FanDuel Research. Brandon, we're talking on a Friday because of the holiday. First of all, happy holidays to you. How you doing today?
Happy holidays. Doing well. Digging into this slate with a different I've just learned as I've gotten older, I'm such a creature of habit, whether it's sort of going to bed around the same time, having similar like nighttime routines, morning routines. But when we get into the late, like the latter stages of the NFL season, and we get short weeks with holidays in terms of our work week, I'm all out of sorts. Now, to clarify, I got all my work done. You know, I have all my prep done. I just did it in a way that was backwards.
Yeah.
And I don't really care for that. So I'm still getting my bearings a little bit. But I do think that there are some good plays on the slate, some kind of games that we can more or less write off, which is always nice on like a 12 and 13 game slate or something. But it's a 9-game slate, so you don't want to write off too many games. So I guess we'll have to make sure we're not being too dismissive here. But yeah, overall, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I got bad news on the reverse process thing. So we have the same schedule for next week, recording Friday because of the New Year's holiday. So get used to it, bud. We got another week to deal with this here.
Yeah, I mean, is it just me, or did you kind of feel some of that?
The injury stuff threw me off. Having more injury info was frankly annoying. I'm like, is that weird?
No, I felt that too. I was like, yeah, I'm actually kind of writing things up, studying the slate for the podcast, and we kind of have a better feel for, you know, who's actually been practicing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I didn't have as much time to do my detailed notes on what happened.
Yeah.
So I have all the spreadsheet stuff, but I think, you know, I committed to memory. I've kind of learned from you. If you write stuff out, you'll learn it better. Didn't take that step, just took the step of logging things. So I'm still a little, you know, but again, like I said, nobody needs to worry. I'm prepared. It just was a small gripe about the schedule because I just, you know, it throws me off. That's all.
Wow. Brandon admitting that my process was not totally flawed. We have come a long way. We should end the podcast now and on a high note.
Okay. Well,
don't clarify. Let's leave that. Let's let it hang out there. And
there's a middle ground between hand typing out every single player's target numbers.
Well, 3 separate target numbers because it's overall red zone and deep targets. Let's be clear here.
Also, you know, I think what ultimately, maybe we'll do. I won't throw any wrestling terms here, but maybe we'll just do like a split here, and I'll have my own podcast where we talk about downfield targets, and you can have your own podcast. And the only difference is you talk deep targets, I talk downfield targets. It's a difference of 6 areas.
Yeah, you can be the AEW here. Enjoy. Yeah, enjoy, bud. See, I actually understood enough to know that was a sick burn. Anyway, we're gonna dive into this Week 17 slate.
You're gonna get some. You might get some emails. I'll just say that.
Who sends emails in 2024? Come on.
I don't know.
We're past that. Send us your angry skeets and tweets instead. We're going to dive into this Week 17 NFL DFS main slate in a second, breaking down injuries to monitor, which games we actually want to stack. We'll talk through a couple of key trends this week, talking about the Eagles without Jalen Hurts, and also diving in to the Bills and their target shares recently. Then we'll go position by position, breaking down our top plays for this week over on FanDuel. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel Research Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast. As mentioned, we're with you at a same time next week, Friday. We're recording the show, so a day later than usual to get you set for the Week 18 NFL DFS main slate. But also, we are with you throughout the playoffs as well on that FanDuel Research Podcast feed. So search for FanDuel Research Podcast wherever you get your podcast. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. Of course, these shows also do stream live on our brand new YouTube page, where you can also find all of our Covering the Spread podcast. NFL Week 17 Best Bets with Megan Payton is up. And also we talked to Aiden Cotter on Friday morning, breaking down his top player props for Week 17. Both those shows on the YouTube page. Go there, subscribe, enable notifications to get notified as we go live Monday, Thursday, and Friday for next week as well. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points each team will score, and so much more. This way, you'll be all set to for the biggest games of the year. Lost my spot. Make every move more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/Chat Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope to see or visit Gambling Helpline ma.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.
Did I throw you off throwing up the Jameis W? I feel like that was my fault.
I didn't notice that you did it, frankly, because
okay.
notes are over here. You're over here. I frankly don't see you for the most part. Also, my computer's further away because I forgot my camera, and so I'm using like the laptop camera, so I have to like set it further away so it's not like in my grill.
Yeah, that's always tricky.
I can't see you, frankly.
I do like it's like an upward angle. I don't know enough about cinematography, but looks more like impactful. I feel like you're more like of a presence this way.
It's probably because my chair is super low and I can't get it any higher. I could go to a higher chair, but then I'd have to like stoop down. It'd be weird. I tried a lot of angles.
Some of the greatest things in movie history have been a result of circumstance. So,
yes. Film expert Brandon Gdula. I am going to trust you.
I've seen over 7 films in my life.
Get out of here. No, absolutely not. Over 7? More than 7. Come on. Let's start things off here with it's right? More than? No?
You can use over now. They changed it.
Oh, the AP changed it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I didn't correct you on further and farther though. It's a 9-game slate, so we got
fair enough.
Time, I think.
Fair enough. When we look at this slate, Brandon, outside of more than and over, I think the key thing for me is I kind of just want to focus on the offenses that I like. And that's going to lead to potentially a dangerously thin player pool this week because there aren't a lot of offenses that I like. There are not a lot of games with high totals, and there are a lot of games with bad weather on this slate. So to me, I think I do want to be a bit tight this week, keeping a tight player core and focusing the guys who are on good offense that I like with good roles. Now, that's going to be probably put me in a bad spot if those offenses and players don't come through. But I think that's the way to play things because there are a lot of bad plays on this slate. What's the overall view for you of this week 17 main slate?
Yeah, I think it's similar, but I'll kind of follow up on that and then kind of give my different overview. We always try to have like 2 different overviews. I don't know if we really need to, but to sort of go along with your point, there's 18 teams on this slate. It's 9 games. Out of those 18, 8 of them have an implied team total of 20 or lower. 7 of them are actually under 20 and 3 of them are below 17. That's not great because that in theory maybe just sort of indicates fewer touchdown chances, but it's overall offensive efficiency. It's the amount of yardage. It's just you want efficient plays. Of course you want the touchdowns, but that's all sort of factored in here. And one thing I do, but like I never really reference it, I just kind of look at it for like my own sake. If you compare each team's like implied team total to the slate average, there's a couple outliers. Of course, in the negative sense, where 3 teams are 5 points worse. So I'll round it up, be aggressive, say it's like a touchdown worse than the slate average, even on a small slate. But the Bucks are like 7 points above the slate average in terms of implied team total. The Bills are on a 6. Washington's a 4.5. The Packers are a 3.5. So like, to go along with what you said, there are a couple offenses that just are head and shoulders above the rest. And we have to be okay potentially double stacking or maybe a running back receiver on those teams. Yeah. Because, they're going to cannibalize each other to a degree. But if you're cannibalizing each other when your team scores 38, it's better than having one-offs of teams that score 16. So,
well, but also like the opportunity cost is lower too, which helps.
Yes. Yeah. So that was kind of where I was going to go, is like opportunity cost. But I guess to sort of simplify it, it's finding any semblance of value, because that's going to alter roster construction. There are a couple running backs at lower salaries where things could break the right way, and I could be receptive there. But this slate at running back is like a throwback heat check slate where there's, off the top of my head, at least 6 players above 8,000 that I would be more than comfortable with in my lineup. Yeah. We got Aaron Jones in a revenge and regression spot at 74. I think that's really appealing. So if I want to allocate a lot of salary at running back, I got to find value elsewhere. And finding value on teams with like high total offenses, you can kind of do it. There's like a potential Romeo Doubs, Jalen McMillan, kind of take your pick with the Bills wideouts.
Yeah.
But am I comfortable with that? So that's what I gotta figure out. Am I better off taking value from these higher scoring teams, or maybe trying to find like the alphas on these lower scoring teams?
Yeah. And that's a tough balance always, but especially tough for this week, I think. And you mentioned being more okay with players on the same team who are, not correlated. I think that is a key thing this week too, because again, opportunity cost is lower. So like, I'm not going to care if I have Aaron Jones and Jordan Addison or Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson in the same lineup, because like, frankly, I just want pieces of that game. And so like, that's fine by me. And I think just kind of being cool with that is where I want to settle in. So I think we're on the same page overall for this week. Let's begin things with the injury discussion. The big one here, of course, is Jalen Hurts, unlikely to play this week, as he is in concussion protocol right now for the Eagles. That put Kenny Pickett in line to start for the Eagles. Eagles still favored by 7.5 against the Cowboys. You'll talk about the Eagles in the trend section later on. Other side of that game, Cowboys have decided to shut down CeeDee Lamb for the season. Lamb had been dealing with a shoulder injury, so no surprise there that he is shut down. They're facing a very tough Eagles defense here. Anybody you're willing to target on the Cowboys side with Lamb out?
So this is a classic heat check sort of. Yeah, there might be volume open, but efficiency is going to be lower if you take someone like CeeDee Lamb, who frankly is, I love Rico Dowdle, but CeeDee Lamb's the one player on this offense who can make plays and really make a difference and kind of turn the field, in Dallas's favor with a big play. So not exactly, although I will just say Jake Ferguson had a really high target share last week. His salary is 55. I don't really want a lot of exposure to this offense, but he's kind of the one name I'm looking at, but it's mostly because we got Brock Bowers, just spoiler alert. There are a couple upside options at tight end if things break the right way. So I'm more receptive at tight end here, but I'm probably thinking this is one of those where the volume doesn't really offset the offense being not productive enough for me.
Yeah, tight end's pretty thin, but I still don't want to go there with Ferguson, despite the fact that his role is good. I just don't like the offense. I want to put my guys in high implied team totals, which is what we get in some other spots. Christian Watson didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday due to a knee bruise to the Packers. Sounds like he still could play, but definitely up in the air. We'll talk about the Packers in the bookmakers section. Kate Otten and Sterling Shepard have both missed the first 2 opening practices for the Bucs this week. Otten has a knee injury, forced him to sit out week 16. Shepard aggravated his hamstring injury during the game. Other side of the game, Adam Thielen, old, was added to the injury report on Thursday with a hamstring injury. Unclear whether that was a mid-practice injury or they're trying to preserve an old guy. Xavier Legette limited Thursday being full in practice on Wednesday. We'll talk about the Bucs and the Panthers in the bookmakers section. Jalen Waddle returned to practice Thursday and was limited. Sounds like he has a good shot to play this week. Didn't practice Wednesday after sitting out week 16 with a knee injury. Dolphins on the road taking on the Browns. That is one of the spots that could be kind of rainy. Total there is low, 39.5. Would you consider Waddle against the Browns if he were to suit up?
So, Miami's implied team total is 23. It's a 1.5 above the slate average. The salary's right, although Jalen Waddle's he's just 6,000 always, and it's for a good reason. For the most part, I was glad not to have to think about him, frankly.
Yeah,
which feels bad to
that.
say.
Yeah.
But he's one of those guys where there is potential. He's a talented football player. I think when he's healthy, he really can sort of change the slate, but I'm not convinced that he's not anything better than, I'll call him the pass catcher
Sure.
behind Tyreek, Jonnu, and Achane. And I don't know that this is a week where Waddle can really burn me. And even though I'm looking for value, I still need the fear of being burnt by not playing certain players. So
yeah,
I'm leaning no. Is that a little too dismissive?
I'm leaning the same direction personally, in large part because of what you said, where I'm not sure he can burn me for not using him because that total is not super high. Weather's not perfect. Is Dorian Thompson-Robinson going to catalyze a shootout? Probably not. So I think I'm leaning towards you where he's not off the map, but also not a guy I'm actively looking to play this week.
Yeah, I think it's a good call with the offense too on the other side.
Yeah.
We're just to sort of reiterate, we always want some level of viability with the game stacks. This week, you just can't really do it. There's not enough of those. But even with that being said, I don't know if Waddle is the right type of. Now, I like Devon Achane just fine. But I don't see myself playing a lot of Jalen Waddle.
Same here. Devontae Adams missed practice Wednesday and Thursday with a hip injury. He was working to the side Thursday, though, so think he still has a shot to play. But if Adams were out, how would you view Garrett Wilson at $6,900 against the Bills?
I think you just play him and don't overthink it.
I think because he's a receiver and because there's some weird vibes there, I wouldn't want to go 60%. But 50 is fair, right?
I would say, yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to playing 100% of my lineups with a running back. I don't really ever get above 60 with a receiver, just due to the nature, the volatility.
Unless it's vintage Gabe Davis, I may have gotten above there a couple times.
I know you would have, yeah. But no, I mean, so Garrett Wilson's had a 24% target share with Devontae since he joined the lineup. Double-digit ADOT. He gets more downfield work than Devontae. Yeah. I kind of feel like I don't want to really set an over-under, but does he get fewer than 12 targets? If there's no Devontae?
No.
And yeah, he might not have the biggest game, but the salary's come down a long way.
Yeah, it has.
He's already at a 24% share, and you're getting rid of someone who just gets a lot of targets. So I think
the way I view it is that he's viable if Adams plays. And so if you have that at 69, it's okay, cool. I guess I kind of have to be high in him to your point.
Yeah, that's basically you can nitpick maybe matchup, maybe the vibes, etc. You're not going to get if I just scroll through, I won't do
Calvin Ridley's the only guy who can get you 12 targets down there. And
in the 6K
I
range?
prefer Aaron Rodgers has his flaws, but he's better than Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. So your chance below 7,000 at 12 plus targets is and I know it's not he's 59, he's 69. I get that, but yeah, he would be a main lineup consideration for me.
Yep.
And probably just be in it, and I'll figure it out from there.
Most likely. I agree with that too. Tony Pollard, speaking of Mason Rudolph, missed practice Wednesday and Thursday with an ankle injury. Didn't practice at all last week and did still play. Now, the key caveat here is that he was 19 yards short of 1,000 yards rushing. He is now above that. So I think there's a better shot he sits this week than there was last week. Let's say hypothetically, Pollard does sit. How would you view Tyjae Spears as a value play this week?
Oh, buddy, here comes the opportunity cost conversation with a loaded running back slate. But Spears kind of showed me enough in recent weeks in terms of pass catching and just overall production. But it's a lot to do with the matchup and the salary here, which I never like backing myself into a play based on salary and matchup. But if we have Tyjae Spears without Pollard at a salary of 58 against the Jaguars, who are 28th in adjusted rush defense, according to Number Fire's metrics this year, it's another one of those, like, I don't really want to overthink it. He had about a 60% snap rate last week, 10 carries, 4 targets, just 66 scrimmage yards. But again, we've seen him be productive. I think his efficiency numbers weren't great to start the year, but I see, like, I'm kind of seeing more of what I want from Spears, and I don't know if I want to overthink this one. So the real question is, let's say we know by the end of the show we don't have Tony Pollard. Like, how much Tyjae Spears are you thinking?
Borderline 100.
Okay.
In large part because I really want Justin Jefferson. I really want Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson, Bucky Irving. And if he allows me to get there without relying aggressively, like, I'm fine with high exposure to him, but I don't want to have, 60% Jalen McMillan or something like that. I'm okay. I'd prefer to have my concentrated usage around a guy with like a very good median and high ceiling expectation. And he kind of gets me that. So I think in order to get access to the studs without relying on, okay value plays elsewhere, I'm okay pushing 100% with him.
Yeah, I think because I don't really see a lot of what else would open up. Like, there's Alexander Madison, but I mean, that's what? I know. I'm saying, like, alternatives in anywhere around here. I think Madison's like,
I wasn't prepared for you to say that. Like that. Oh, that hit me hard.
So you're thinking like championship week, you're having some running back injuries. That's one thing. For DFS, it's very different with Madison for me.
Yeah.
Kendry Miller did not have the role that I want. That offense is brutal.
And Nick Underhill, the good beat report for them said, like, hey, he's got pass protection issues. So it's like, it's not like it was fluky that he didn't play a lot in that game either.
Yeah. So he's kind of it. And I don't see what else would open up to make me sort of think differently.
And Kendry is 62. It's not like he's cheap either. So it's like, couple things against him.
Oh, yeah. So Spears would be the guy. And I think at a certain point, value running backs, I wrote an article. It's on, if you go to Number Fire still, it's one of the numberfire.com. That is, it's one of the articles that still lives up there. Shout out FanDuel.com/research, which is where you'll find all of our written content now. But about pivoting from chalk, and basically one of the main takeaways was we're pretty good collectively at figuring out chalk running backs.
Yeah.
Because it's just easier to project position. So I know there's a lot of time on Tyjae Spears, but frankly, he would alter the slate. If we don't, like, if Pollard's going to play, are you off of Spears? Are you still taking swipes? Where are you with him?
Probably not taking swipes.
I kind of think so, but
yeah,
I think there's
it's not off the table.
Like 14 points to get access to like the mistake erasers. So I'm feeling better about Spears than I thought, but without Pollard, but so rest up, Tony. You had a good season.
Rest up, Tony. We'll see you next year. Anthony Richardson hasn't practiced yet this week, but the Colts are still optimistic that he'll start against the Giants, according to Stephen Holder of ESPN. If Richardson can't go to be Joe Flacco, hypothetically, how would you view the Colts if Flacco were to start?
I like Jonathan Taylor. It's not chasing the week he had last week. He's still kind of due for touchdown regression, which is wild after a 3-touchdown game. I don't want to really consider the pass catchers, but like, they got a solid implied
61.
I know, like, I don't want to have to do it. but
Yeah, I'm not a Josh Downs guy, but if it were
I
Flacco,
know.
I'd be cool with it.
I
Like
think it's going to be
61 for probably 10 targets. Like he'd be in that. He wouldn't be in like the Wilson discussion where we're looking at 12, but like he'd get his 10 at $6,100, which is pretty sweet.
Yeah, I think that it's more a matter of like I don't want to have to think about it, but I know I'm
Yeah.
going to have to, which isn't a great answer on a podcast.
I mean, if
like
Richardson
this.
plays, you don't have to think about it, which helps. So
Right,
rest up Joe, I guess, in the situation. Hurry back out there, Anthony.
It'd be good for JT. Would it alter your opinion on JT at all?
I think there's give and take because his pass catching rule improves with Flacco. He's at 4.3 targets per game with Flacco versus 1.3 with Richardson. His red zone role weirdly gets worse. It's probably just small sample stuff there. So I would say prefer him with Richardson because Richardson opens more rushing lanes for him and can get those big plays, but would still be okay with him regardless.
So Downs is at 10 targets a game with Flacco, 28% target share, just a 6.3 yard ADOT, which you don't love, but pretty good red zone roll, 2.38 yards per route run. I guess I should be higher. Would he be like a main lineup consideration for you or more of a okay, that's saying a lot for you. So maybe I need to take that.
Yeah, because usually my aversion to him is they're going to complete 7 passes during the game. I used to joke they'll complete 11 passes, but then they threw the ball 11 times last week. So I have to actually lower the joke number at this point. So with Flacco, it's different, and I'd be higher on him there.
Yeah, and it's a big game for them.
Yeah, it is. Like, it definitely is.
They're one of the playoff race is kind of a dud this year, but
boring.
At least the Colts like kind of fit. But
yep. It's tough there. De'Ami Brown has missed the opening 2 practices for the Commanders due to a hamstring injury, seemingly puts him on the wrong side of questionable. We'll talk about the Commanders in the bookmakers section. Dorian Thompson-Robinson is a likely starter for the Browns again this week, according to OC Ken Dorsey. May not have David Njoku, who missed practice Wednesday and Thursday due to a knee injury. Any Browns interest with DTR back in the saddle this week?
Didn't really love what I saw last week from DTR, $157 on 34 attempts and 2 picks. Jerome Ford had a strange game where he ended up playing more, I think, than they wanted due to Deontay Foreman's goal line fumble early on. So I don't know if like they just go back to Foreman but it's still telling to me that like he didn't seem to be the goal line guy until he had to be, which is not how I want to really pick my running backs, and like their implied team totals sub 17. So I don't want to chase that. Is that being dismissive of Ford?
I think that he's like fine because he's like the lowest salary guy with an actual role.
He is.
So it's like,
I was going to get to Ford and like the Spears conversation, but it's an $800 difference.
Yeah.
And like you could do worse than Ford. Right. I still think you could do better.
I think you could do better too. Yeah. Cause like in that same range, like somewhat same range, Aaron Jones, 74, Brian Robinson, 69. Like those guys, I'd rather just find a way to get there. But like, let's say I can't make it work. Am I okay with having like a share or 2 of Jerome Ford? Sure. Because like you said, Foreman did lose a fumble. That could help him. Ford can bust off big plays. I don't want to depend on that, but he can do it at least. He'll get some passing game work. There's enough where it's like fine at 66, but like on a bigger slate, I would just not think about it.
Yeah, I think so. One of the terms I kind of use a lot is like a concession. Sometimes you're just like, okay, I love these 8 players, but I need a 9. Like if he's your concession, you could do worse. Like, I'm rebuilding. If I have 6,400 left, and it's like, I'm not just plugging in Kendre Miller to make a lineup work. If I have 66 and love the lineup, I'll play Jerome Ford.
Sure. I think that makes sense as well. Both Malik Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy are up in the air this week for the Giants. Neighbors said he is a game day decision. Tracy has missed 2 practices with an ankle injury. Brian Dable said Friday that he thinks that there's a hope that they will go. But it sounds like Drew Lock will start here again. Any Giants for you against the Colts?
So we're talking about like 12 targets. 12 targets is what Wan'Dale Robinson had last week, and his salary is he had 12 targets
for 39 yards,
62. Come on, don't be. He had 38 the 2 prior games. That's probably
exactly.
But if there's one thing I feel like we can help people with, maybe 2 things. One is honestly adjusted opportunities, just to sort of get a good understanding for running back workloads and how important receiving is. And the other is downfield targets that we talk about a lot. Like, yes, it's true that I think if there's no Tracy, no Neighbors, Wan'Dale, he's had 12, 9, and 11 targets. I think he'll get double-digit targets at 53. I do not want to play him at all. The implied team total is under 17. There's no yardage juice here. I'm very ready for him finally to break a play, but I had it in the back of my mind because I knew we were going to get here, and we're talking about like, oh, who's got 12 target potential down here? I was like, I know of one, but it's very different. So
yeah,
I don't think I'd play any Giants because again, it's one of those. Sure, you lose big market shares, but who really benefits?
I don't know. And that's why I want to avoid it. So we're on the same page there. Speaking of which, Spencer Rattler likely to start for the Saints this week. Both Derek Carr and Alvin Kamara sidelined to practice on Wednesday and Thursday. Chris Olave, though, did practice in full on Wednesday and Thursday, so he could be back out there. We saw this offense crater on Monday, but they're at home against the Raiders here. Any Saints for you? Let's assume Olave plays.
I love Chris Olave. It's been a tough year for Chris. I can't see myself going there.
Yeah,
based on how Spencer Rattler is playing.
We've seen Olave with Rattler / Hayner because I think Rattler got benched at 1.2. Did have 107 yards in one of those games. So like he's capable of it, but like, I mean, I don't get really why they're pushing him out there, frankly. So it's like, would you risk it a lot with Olave and funnel him 14 targets? Because I wouldn't personally in this spot.
Like I'll embarrass myself. I have no idea about contracts. It's not something that really interests me too much. I do daily fantasy stuff, not like dynasty. Is he like playing for a new contract or like auditioning for another team or something? What is like? When I saw his name on the sheet, I was like, I did like a triple take because
I thought maybe that Chris Olave, the Chris Olave.
I thought maybe I pulled up like the week 5.
Do you mean Chris Olive, his long lost cousin? No, okay.
So, I mean, like he's gonna be indoors. He could get 12 targets, like you said. I'd be really interesting to see where the props are on Olave. I don't think there's anything up, but like for that game. It's memory serves.
Like Rattler did play in a game that shot out. It was that Buccaneers game where things just went nutty the entire time. So like it can happen, but it's just like I kind of want to come back to I want to focus on the good offenses, and this is not that. So like he wouldn't be. Yeah, go ahead.
I think what we'll probably end up doing here is once we do the salary scroll at the end of the show, we can properly contextualize Chris Olave. And we talked about making concessions and like, look, I love Jalen McMillan.
Yeah.
He's in the offense with the highest implied team total of the week.
He is.
Like you said, though, you don't really want 60% Jalen McMillan. You don't really want 60% of any receiver, let alone a value receiver. I could probably get to a point of like Chris Olave if he's a concession for me.
Yeah.
Chris Olave, Brock Bowers, everything else is mega chalk. I could see that. So
okay. Fair enough.
I think by the time we hit the scroll, we'll kind of get a better feel for if we need Olave.
But he's not off the map is what we're both saying, right?
I don't want to, but
Yeah.
if he's
Okay.
gonna play,
Sure.
do you think he's just gonna play like
60.
30% of the snaps and like
He'd probably be around 60 or so if I had to guess. But yeah.
probably come in like high leverage situation? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
Yep. I do wish he would rest up though for his own sake. But if he wants to play, he wants to play. I can't stop him. But
that's probably what it is.
I'm glad he's healthy enough to play. I just don't really want to see him do so right now, personally. Let's take a look here at the bookmaker section for this week and begin with the game with the biggest real life implications. That is the Packers at the Vikings, and probably the most fun game on the slate too. Vikings still have a shot at the 1 seed. The Packers are actually, were slight favorites. They're now back to -104 on the money line. Vikings at -112 there. Total in this game is at 48.5 as things stand. This game rules for real life, Brandon. But at least one side here has been frustrating at times with the lack of concentrated target shares. So what's your view of this game for DFS?
I love it. I specifically love the Vikings, and I don't specifically feel the need to bring back with the Packers because their best case scenarios are all relatively low. I mean, I guess if you say like, what's the best Jaden Reed game? It's like 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but what are the odds he gets that with his role being what it is? And just, oh, Christian Watson's out. Let's bring back Dontavian Wicks and give him, what do you have, like 7 targets? Like, I don't understand what they're doing and why. It's working for them because they're a successful football team. But in terms of like DFS, Romeo Doubs, he's kind of the lone constant for them. His salary is only $5,600. He's a constant in terms of he always leads in routes or virtually always leads in routes. He doesn't have a lot of that fluctuation.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily get a ton of work. I think he's a good football player, but Jim's pulling up his box score, like 5 targets for 40 yards. It's too common. And so what are the odds Dobbs can burn me? He really needs 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Which he can do, especially if this game is as fun as it could be. So he's definitely not off the radar. He's going to be my favorite at salary Packers pass catcher.
Yeah.
And he's good value because we have Justin Jefferson here, Aaron Jones, Jordan Addison. So I know it's kind of backwards, but I really do want to start with the Packers pass catchers to see, because the Vikings is going to be a pretty easy case to make. So like
play them all.
Let's get serious.
Yeah.
We don't have game stacks, right? Like we don't have a lot of obvious game stacks. This is process wise the game to stack, but market share wise, what do we do? So talk to me about Green Bay.
I agree with you on Dobbs being the best bring back option at 56. Because like before his concussion, he was playing really good football. And we talked about him like, okay, we're finally starting to get in this guy. Then he gets hurt, comes back and immediately scores twice. Didn't do a lot last week, but also they didn't throw. They didn't throw a lot against Seattle either. So the volume for the team has been low, which makes sense. Probably not going to be as low here, given the Vikings are a very good rush defense, and the script should be more neutral than it has been in the past. So I think like the way that I view it is, let's say I've got, which I probably will, Jefferson in my main lineup or Addison, one of the two will be in there. Would I rather run it back with Dobbs or would I rather go Jalen McMillan? That's a tough question for me because like I do like this game to stack. And I think that Dobbs is good enough to be in that discussion. McMillan's not flawless. So I think that Dobbs and McMillan are kind of like comparable for me, which is an endorsement of this game because I think that Dobbs' role is not as good as McMillan's. But I think that's fine for Dobbs is putting him there. Do you kind of put him in the same bucket?
Yeah, I think it is a little stack dependent. But like I haven't built a ton of lineups where maybe we use both. If you use like Dobbs and McMillan and Spears, you can probably do a lot with that. But like I think that okay, it's a 9-game slate. Just mathematically, there are fewer players who can score 30 plus points because there just aren't as many players on the slate. So you can be more receptive to, I don't want to say lower ceiling because we still want ceiling. We still want, if Jalen McMillan can only score 10 points, I don't want to play him. That's kind of how I feel about Wan'Dale Robinson.
Right.
So I think that's interesting. I'm going to tinker with that and just kind of see. It's not necessarily like correlated with those
Yeah.
three, and I'm not saying that they're obviously the three best value plays, but it's just a jumping off point. So I'm going to see what I can get here when while I do that. But
yeah, with Reed, he is game stacks only, obviously, and probably only like love lineups, frankly. Like let's say I have 10 Jordan Love lineups, which is probably not. I probably won't get that many. I think I'm doing 4 of them by himself, 2 with Reed, 2 with Josh Jacobs, 2 with Dobbs, maybe a bit more towards Dobbs. But I'm okay going with 40% of my love lineups being just him by himself. Is that kind of how you view things even when you decide to go Love? If you decide to go Love?
yeah, I just would need to spread it around a lot. The thing for me just always is I'm assuming Jaden Reed's week 1 was the best game for a Packers receiver this year.
Watson had 150 in a game at one point too. Well, I guess Reed had a rushing touchdown thing in that game as well, maybe. But he also had 139 against the Vikings. But I think Watson missed that game. Or no, that's the game Watson got hurt.
He left.
Yeah.
And Watson, 4 for 150 for 20 FanDuel points. So what I'm getting at is there are paths to a player sort of over exceeding expectation, but realistically, the probability that one of these guys gets 20, it's going to be more dispersed. So that's why I think I like Jordan Love. I think he's an interesting play on a slate where, any salary savings, or if you can just plug in a player in a great game, that's interesting. The fact that I can't stack him with anyone with confidence bumps me down on him. So, yeah.
Would you stack him with Jacobs? Because I think I would, given his pass catching role and the fact that we're probably going to get most of the yardage of that situation.
Yep, I think that's one of the most interesting ways to go about it. Does he have a receiving score yet? Did he finally get one?
Yeah, he got one back in October.
Right. So I'm not necessarily doing the double dip angle here. It would be more, look, Jacobs was on pace for a great game on Monday, and then it just didn't matter. So he came out early, but still went over 100 scrimmage yards. I think Love and Jacobs is probably the most interesting angle here.
Yeah, if I had one Love lineup, I would either go by himself or with Jacobs, I think. If I had just one, I think that's
just the odds you're getting from Reed, Dobbs, Kraft, Wicks, the odds these guys again pop off. It's so minimal because they're like the Colts. I got to remember the year better, but there was a year recently that no Colt ever got over a 20% target share in a game. Yeah. That's kind of where they are now.
Yeah. So that's the Packers side. Let's talk the Vikings side. How do you rank them? I think that's because we like them all. I will speak for you. We like all of Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. If I say, Brandon, you can only use one of those guys in a lineup, who do you go towards?
I think Aaron Jones.
Okay. Talking about him.
Due to the fact that the salary is low, he's due for big time touchdown regression. He's actually been scoring lately. 4 straight games with a touchdown, or he had 4 straight and then didn't score against Seattle, but he's due for 3.5 more touchdowns than he has, which is pretty sick. This is a revenge game, which is kind of a bit, but also not really.
And they did try to get him a touchdown the first time they played, so it was real then.
And if you look at recent touchdown distributions, Jefferson has a ton, Addison has a ton. Mm-hmm. Jones is getting some, but a multi-touchdown game for Jones is not really out of the cards. And he's coming off of his highest snap rate of the year. This game's important. Again, that's part of why we're targeting it, because there's not going to be taking the foot off the pedal here. So I really want to get to Justin Jefferson. I could hear the case for Jordan Addison just due to the fact that he's a wide receiver. But I don't want to like overlook Aaron Jones and kind of just get caught up in the upper 8K range, or like I guess the
Yeah.
8K and up. Aaron Jones is to me undersalaried for what his potential is this week.
Is he the lowest salary guy you're like, yeah, I want that guy in my lineup? Because he is for me.
At running back?
Yeah.
Yeah, so running back, it's Saquon and Bijan, love them both. Again, I like to varying degrees, and it might depend on health and potentially weather too, but Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, and Bucky Irving. And then it's really Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
Like those are kind of, what's that, 7 names? 7's plenty of running backs. I know that means, you got to play value elsewhere to get to those guys. But because Aaron Jones is, I don't know, name that salary for Aaron Jones where you think you would not play him.
Would not play him at all?
Yeah.
Like 82?
I was saying 83. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of room there. I think
like
his
he should be around
probably,
78, I think.
I was going to say 78.
Yeah.
And so I think Jones is a great play. It's not to, I love Addison. There's a lot to like about Jordan Addison this week too.
Yeah.
But Aaron Jones, I mean, you're making me pick. So I'm going to say Aaron Jones, but Jordan Addison's very close.
Yeah. I think I lean towards you too. Snap rate back up for Jones last week in a critical game. This is just as critical if they want to shot the 1 seed. So I think that snap rate will stay high, which is good for him at 74. Addison, the appeal for him is that his salary is just low, frankly, at $7,000. In the games with Hawkinson back, Addison's target share 23.7% with a 35% deep target share and 28% inside the red zone. That's awesome across the board. And again, the salary's low. It's a game we want. High total, tight spread. Like he checks every box. And, I don't want to rank him above Jefferson because Jefferson's a psychopath. But given Jefferson just blew up, probably going to carry a higher roster rate if I had to guess. So I would go probably Addison above Jefferson, as weird as that feels. But I just think, frankly, they're all phenomenal plays. I think the other key point for me here is if I go Darnold, which I will, begrudgingly, Sam Darnold will be my player pool for this week. If I go with him, I'm going to have 2 pass catchers in every stack with him. And I will include Aaron Jones as a quote unquote pass catcher there because he does get some work there. But I think a Darnold, Jefferson, Addison lineup, that's pretty fun. But even Hawkinson too, because his salary's low at $5,700. So I think that's my other takeaway for this slate is that I'll have Darnold paired with 2 of those guys. Also, because it means I can up my exposure to all those guys kind of organically as a result.
Yeah. So TJ Hawkinson's role kind of spiked in week 12. And if you look at the target shares since then, Jefferson's at 29%. Jordan Addison's at 20%. Is at 20%. There's better days ahead for TJ Hawkinson for sure. But also Jordan Addison is not that far off in terms of workload from Justin Jefferson. So I think that all 3 of these guys are appealing. And if you're playing Sam Darnold, you're playing 2 pass catchers this week, I think.
Do you prefer Darnold or Love?
Darnold.
Because we can stack him?
Yep.
I agree. Any final thoughts for you on this game?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's talk then about another high total on the slate. I don't know if the Buccaneers still have the highest implied total, but they did at one point because the total here went down a point, down to 47.5, but still very high implied total for the Buccaneers in this game as they take on the Panthers. Right now at FanDuel Sportsbook, 8.5-point favorites, total 47.5 at home against the Panthers. We know where the ball is going for the Buccaneers. Cade Otton not going to play this week. They just announced the Panthers have some pieces we can trust as well. So how are you viewing this game for stacking?
I love this one too.
I do too.
It's a 1 quarterback game.
It is, yes.
But there's value to be had with the Panthers in terms of pass catchers. There's value to be had with the Buccaneers, especially now that Cade Otton's been ruled out. So it's not as entertaining from a real life or fantasy standpoint as the game we just discussed with the Vikings and Packers, but it's not that far off for me. And This is a huge game for the Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
I like Baker. I like Mike. I like Jalen. We got to you can talk about Bucky, and we can kind of rank him among the elite. There's a lot of ways to go here, and that's fun.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. There are bringbacks here, which is nice, and we can feel good about this Bucks offense. Let's begin with Bucky, because I think he's my favorite piece within this game. Bucky Irving, $8,000. It is a loaded running back slate, as you mentioned. His role has been good with Rachaad White. If you look at the games, Bucky has played in full since White came back. He is at 102.9 yards from scrimmage per game. That is the lowest salary for any guy at 100 or higher on the main slate. And it ranks 5th overall among all players, despite the fact he is 8th in salary. That's with his baseline role, not cherry picking, since his snaps went up or anything like that. That's what it's been, if you include even the first games back for White. But Rachaad White lost a very key fumble at the end of the Sunday night game. And then Liam Cohen, their OC, was saying that they preach ball security, and ball security was not being exhibited by Rachaad White on that play. So, not necessarily projecting a role change for Bucky, a role expansion, but it's within the range of outcomes. And I think it's a guy who is in play if we assume he keeps his current role. But if you give him an expanded role, bananas kind of play. So I adore Bucky. Is this too wish-casty on my part to kind of read between the lines on some coach speak during the week?
No, I think it's a great situation for him already. And he also torched the Panthers.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's part of it. Again, this is a really important game for the Buccaneers. Next Gen Stats gives them a 63% chance to make the playoffs if they win, up from 49%, but down to 13% if they lose. The Panthers are scrappy. They're playing hard. They're knocking out the Cardinals. They're gonna have Tampa Bay is gonna have to be and stay competitive here. And if you're talking about ball security issues, and you have someone in Bucky Irving who's as talented as he is,
yeah,
I think it's kind of you would consider him with his sort of current or recent role, and now there's a chance for a role expansion. So I think Irving is really interesting. I'm assuming he's your favorite among those. I'm calling it 4 running backs. I just call them the $8,000 backs because I'm just kind of throwing Bijan into the 9K range for simplicity's sake.
Sure.
So Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Devon Achane, Bucky Irving. Is Bucky by far your top option there?
I think that JT's in the range, within shouting distance, but I like him more than Achane. Feel pretty good about that. Like him more than Jacobs. So not by far, but he is my top guy in that range right now, personally. How about for you?
I'm kind of warming up to that, but I think
Okay.
we've seen from Jonathan Taylor recently, not just last week, but he's got at least 22 carries in 3 straight games. He's just the focal point he is the Colts offense. I'll just say that. And efficiency should be there with Joe Flacco in a game where they're probably not going to get a lot of pushback, which sounds bad, but the Colts need to make sure that they win this game. So I think JT is sort of, I don't want to say a lock for 20 carries, but
yeah,
I'm not going to be surprised if he gets 25 carries at all. So
no, definitely not.
Should probably lean Bucky, but JT's right there too for me.
I get that for sure. Let's talk here about the pass catchers for the Buccaneers. First of all, we both think Baker's in the player pool, correct? Yeah.
Yes, love Baker this week.
Yep, I do as well. Now, let's talk McMillan, because probably don't have to sell the masses on Mike Evans at $8,600, but McMillan, last week with no Kate Otten, McMillan wound up getting 7 targets, 57 yards, and a touchdown. Thought he had the potential for more. Seemed like he was starting to connect with Baker late in that game, and then the White fumble happened and stuff like that. But we talked about this guy who we talked about in week 2, frankly, because he had 3 almost touchdowns in week 1. He has talent, got some draft capital. The role has improved, and yeah, it's not a ton of targets, but it's 7, 6, and 7 for a guy who is $5,900 and a team that is hyper efficient passing right now. Good matchup at home, key game. Just a lot of key boxes to check. So I think McMillan is very, very fun this week. Where are you at on him?
Love him. I'm going to have to make sure I don't get too much, which is kind of tells me where I am with him.
Yeah.
4 straight games with at least an 80% route rate. You love to see that. And look, he's scoring a lot lately. He's got 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games, which you want to see. If I pull maybe a reverse, Jim, because you don't do this where you say like, oh, player X has had 19, 18, and like 15 fantasy points without a score,
Yeah.
This is more of a, okay, take away the scores from McMillan and what do you get?
Right.
Now, the reason I think I'm okay not just falling into that and saying, there's no real yardage upside, he is bottom 10 in receiving yards over expectation on downfield passes, so passes traveling at least 10 yards. I don't think that's because he's not a good football player.
Correct.
He is kind of an outlier in this offense in that sense. His catch rate's really low compared to the rest of the Buccaneers. And again, I don't think it's because he's not good. So you get a Panthers team that's last in pressure rate. Baker's going to be able to kind of stand back there and sling it. I think that even if McMillan, if like the regression hits from a touchdown standpoint, at some point regression's got to hit on some of these downfield targets because he is getting downfield work. So there's so many boxes he checks, like you said, where I'm going to have to make sure I don't get overexposed to Jalen McMillan this week.
Yeah, 33% deep target share for McMillan the past 3 games. Only one of those was without Auden. So it's a good downfield role. Just hasn't cashed in. So we always ask, can he get me 85 yards or 2 touchdowns? I think he can get you either, frankly. I think the 85 yards, despite not being there yet, is something he definitely can do. So we both like McMillan 59. Let's talk about the bringbacks here because...
we're not done here.
Why?
Go to tight end.
No. I'm not looking at Payne Durham. No.
Why?
Because I don't care.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Why? Wait, why? Is this for real? You're not interested?
No.
Tight end against a terrible...
Look at this headshot. Come on.
Tight end... I'm sorry. Tight end against a terrible pass defense on a team with one of the highest implied team totals. He literally had the same touchdown odds at plus 210 as Cade Otton this morning. He basically just took on the Cade Otton role. And it was kind of like pretty sick. 93% snap rate, 80% of the routes, 16% target share. I understand the yards weren't there, but he had 2 downfield targets, played all 7 red zone snaps. I think this is I'm just saying, you might want to think a little bit extra here.
Guess what he ran the 40. This is analysis.
This is not analysis.
Yes, it is. Guess what he ran the 40.
Probably faster than the defenders will be playing against this week.
I don't think that's true. You ran a 4.87. His best comp is Jack Doyle. Now, Jack Doyle was fine. But Jack Doyle was not, I know. I'm not trying to disparage Jack Doyle. But like, I don't think I can do that.
Okay, I think this is going to be the game we play this week.
Okay.
Is Payne Durham an appropriate concession for you this week?
No.
He is for me in this offense. I think that's being too dismissive.
I disagrey.
It's not. But it's tight end, and we love Brock Bowers. All we want here,
is a fast 40 time, and I'm not getting it from Payne.
That's Durham. All you want. Would Kyle Pitts run his 40 in?
Well, I can get Dalton Kincaid instead, so I don't care.
Would you play Cade Otton at 46?
Yeah, Cade Otton earns targets. Well, sorry, I know that Payne Durham did it last week, but
he literally just had the Cade Otton role. I'm sorry. I'm not saying he's the best tight end play. I just think it's a little...
Okay, you can play it. Play him in our head-to-head. Then we'll be good.
No. It's... If I'm stacking Baker and... If I go Baker, Mike Evans, and... What's his name? No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, my goodness. Maybe it's because his name is Durham, and I confuse him with Durham Smythe. Also a Florida
That's
team.
part of it.
Yeah. Maybe it's the Durham stink on him.
No, I do know his name. It was for the bit to clarify.
I know you.
The only reason I would actually hesitate on that is touchdown dependency with Mike Evans and Durham. But If Baker throws for 5 and they get 2
Yeah.
apiece, we're cooking. So,
Well, 3 of those are to Bucky. So
okay.
just keep that in mind.
Okay.
On the Panthers, I'm not going to use Thielen. Salary's too high, 62. He's now got this hamstring injury potentially. I think though, I don't mind Chuba Hubbard again at 76. He played really well this past week. You see the Q tag there. He was resting on Wednesday, Thursday. So that's why he's there. Bucks rush defense pretty good again now that Vita Vea is healthy, but likely no Antoine Winfield Jr. again, I'd assume here. So Chuba's fine as a bring back. Prefer Jalen Coker though at 51. You brought up Coker first in our Slack though, so I'll let you talk about him. What are your thoughts on Jalen Coker this week?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like, I think, with Jalen Coker. He kind of broke out in week 10 and then didn't play for 3 weeks and then returned to an expanded role. He's got, like, again, if you just look at the sort of the box score, you're not going to love what you see in terms of consistency, but frankly, he's got a lot of good underlying data. Last week, 2 end zone targets, if memory serves. I don't have my notes pulled up exactly how I'd want them. But in this 3-game target share, he's got 25% target share. And again, it's a weird split because like he broke out, like they elevated him in week 10, then he missed time, but came back to that big role. 25% target share, 30% red zone share, and 43% of the end zone targets. So there's a lot to like, and they're kind of been shifting around a little bit with the other pass catchers, but Coker seems to be like the constant. He's sort of like,
Yeah.
I'll call him like the Romeo Dobbs here, but like other people's roles are kind of up and down a little bit, but Coker's been the guy who's just sort of elevated, and he does a lot for the, as Jim's pulling up, a bring back for Mike Evans and or Jalen McMillan and or our guy, Payne Durham Smythe. So
I think that's the big part of it is he helps offset the salaries. He has big playability. Last week, Thielen's role did decline a bit because they played some more 2 receiver sets, Jatavian Sanders and Tommy Tremble, both healthy. So they cut back on Thielen's snaps. He didn't play in 2 receiver sets. But Coker was out there along with David Moore. And as Xavier gets back, he's probably costing David Moore more so than Coker. So I think that Coker works. He'd be more of like a 20% kind of guy for me, I think, whereas McMillan's like 40 to 50 most likely. So not like, too crazy, but that's quite a bit. 20% from me on a low 5,000 receiver is a lot, frankly. So I think we're on the same page with him. You kind of seem to be less enthused about Chuba. How do you feel about him at 76?
I've seen enough running back struggle against Tampa Bay where I don't love it. Okay. That's the main hang up. I love his role. I've played a lot of Chuba Hubbard this year. That's my main hang up. And the fact that, look, Carolina's been playing tough. I appreciate that. They might just get demolished here. I don't know that they can really hang with the Bucks based on how the Bucks are playing, but also the Bucks have enough.
Bucks are not flawless. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's fine, but even if I'm like stacking Baker with Evans and I got 76, I'm going Aaron Jones over Chuba, right?
I'd get some Chuba in there for Baker lineups personally. I think I would. Just because like he's very involved. Putting Baker in there doesn't always assume that it's a, back and forth game, but it does have that as an option. So I think that given how involved he is, like a 98% snap rate, I think I'd put him in there. Yeah.
Okay. So what's your sort of overall exposure, you think, for Chuba this week?
10%, somewhere in there, most likely.
Okay.
But like in game stacks, like sure, I'll go there. That's kind of where I settle in at.
I mean, his role's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And his upside's there because of the role and because he's honestly just good, but he's not, if it were a different matchup, I'd be there.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about our final bookmaker game for this week then. That is the Falcons and the Commanders. It is the Sunday night hammer right now, FanDuel Sports. The Commanders favored by 4.5. Total in this game is at 47.5. This one is also down a tick from where it was earlier on this week. Commanders offense went nutty last week. Jaden Daniels, the best quarterback of all time. Falcons looked better under Michael Penix at least. So what's your interest level in stacking this game on Sunday Night Football?
Main concern is just weather.
Yeah.
And
right now that weather is 13-mile-per-hour winds, rain in the forecast, so it's not perfect by any means, and it's enough where I would downgrade pieces a bit.
Yeah, and we're talking about an indoor team going outdoors on the road in the conditions. That's not lost on me. However, this is a 9-game slate and a lot of imperfections, and I think you can do a lot worse than considering, frankly, a lot of players in this game on either side. But weirdly, fewer players on the Commanders. I think it's really just Jaden, Terry, and I kind of joked he was it's the B-Rob matchup.
Oh, it is. You're right. Yeah.
So we got that but Brian Robinson, I was joking, was like the real B. Robinson, which is not really the case, but
he was stripped of that title last week.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I think the Commanders are kind of easy. I want to get some Jaden and Terry stacks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very receptive to playing Brian Robinson, although I would kind of rather not if I could avoid it, which is lower than where I used to be with him. But I think they're a pretty easy one to figure out.
Yeah, which is nice. And also, I think salaries on both McLaurin and Daniels are forgiving. Terry McLaurin's salary, $7,900. Daniels, $8,500. That's fine, given that we know where the ball is going. They've been very efficient this year. They're facing a team that struggles against outside wide receivers. It makes a lot of sense. So I don't feel the need to overanalyze them. I think that they're both like Daniels, probably my quarterback 2 above Baker right now. Is that fair?
I kind of think so.
Actually. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of think so. The only real concern here is the weather.
Yeah.
So this again, we're kind of ragged on the whole playoff scenario.
Yeah.
This matters for
the
Commanders. Sorry. Benny, who's never in my office during the shows, is causing havoc here. So that's my bad. But
this is the first Rosa bark out of Benny. This is Benny,
basically
Benny wants to play the Commanders.
Benny knows ball. So I'm thinking it's Jaden week, but no, it's honestly just the only concern for me is weather.
I think that makes sense.
It's a very important game for them. Super easy stack with Terry, and if it doesn't work out, it kind of doesn't work out. But yeah, for me, Jaden's very firmly in that conversation for QB1.
All right, so we're cool with Terry. We like Jaden. Would you have any Olamide Zaccheaus in your player pool at $5,200 if we assume there's no De'Ami Brown?
All day, Olamide, as I like to call him. But yeah, it's interesting. He's coming off the 2-touchdown game, had some yardage upside, some big play potential. I think there's a lot. Again, it's one of those you could do a lot worse than playing Zaccheaus, and this would be revenge game, right?
I was gonna say you forgot the most important part, of course.
Oh, that is most important. Well, we should have just started with that.
Well, it's important because he had a revenge game last week and had 2 touchdowns. If it weren't for the revenge game, he wouldn't have scored twice. You know what the coverage busted? Because they were frightened of the revenge game out of Olamide Zaccheaus. That's why.
Yeah, that's fair. So I think Zaccheaus or Coker straight up. I'm going Coker, but in stacks.
Yeah.
Zaccheaus. So I think Jaden, Terry, and Zaccheaus stacks are fun.
Sure.
I'm really coming to terms with multiple pass catchers.
Yeah.
Typically, I do that more with pocket passers now, like a Sam Darnold. But I think there's enough here in this offense, which is has one of the highest offensive expectations for the week. So
cool.
I think this one's pretty easy. I know I said it was 3 players. I guess Zaccheaus I'm receptive to. I do see also a certain tight end popping up a lot in value optimizers and whatnot, but I'm not there.
Nope. I would rather use Zach Ertz than Payne Durham. Payne Durham. But
bet me.
That's it.
Bet me.
Wait, Zach Ertz versus Payne Durham straight up?
Yeah.
Happily. Why? Based on one game.
Because I want you to have some sort of
root for Zach Ertz.
Yes, that's all I was.
Oh, I hate that. That's so mean. It's diabolical. Yeah, I'll bet you though. That's fine. Right. Okay, Falcon side. I don't know what to do here. Drake London's salary's come down to 71. We always say he can't burn me for not using him. That equation shifts the lower his salary goes. He's down to 71, dealing with a hamstring injury. It sounds like he'll be good to go for this game, though. Limited practice on Wednesday and Thursday. I still don't think he can burn me, but I am more receptive to him as that salary slides down. How do you feel about London, Mooney, and then we'll talk Bijan after that?
Yeah, London with the salary coming down, I think there's potential. It's not really yardage based, it's more touchdown based in a game where they will have to be competitive. I don't really think this is one where Atlanta just plays from ahead like they did last week. Their defense is not good enough, I think, to like really clamp down on Jaden. And Drake London he's got some flaws, but he's got one of the best red zone roles in football. And like I'm starting to look at plays where you're inside the 10 or in the end zone when targeted, which is really when your touchdown rate spikes, and he just has a great role from even that perspective. So that will account for so say you're on the 25 and you get thrown to on the 5. That's a big play. It's not a red zone target, but he stands out there. So it's more of a do we think, I know you say 85 yards or 2 touchdowns. It's more like, can he get 2 touchdowns this week? So I think he can. Yeah. I know he's gotten over 85 yards. It's kind of the joke, but it's not very frequent for him. I think he's got multiple touchdowns. And frankly, with the Kyle Pitts interception last week, that's not going to do him any favors in the red zone. So I'm good with Drake London. Mostly one exposure here in stacks. Yeah. But I do think that, do we want to talk Darnell Mooney or do we want to talk Michael Penix next?
Let's do Mooney. 64. He talked about how he doesn't have a rapport with Penix yet, and I thought that was kind of concerning. He did go for 82 yards last week. But Penix was like very close to the line of scrimmage. Now, was that because they were ahead? Potentially. And would that change if they were to fall behind? That's possible. I just don't like targeting guys of that archetype where they're dependent on, big plays, basically, which is kind of what Mooney's been when they're outdoors in bad weather. Like, that's kind of my hang up, I think, with Mooney. How do you feel about him at 64?
Yeah, I think that's why it's dependent on stacks. He hasn't scored in 6 straight games. 4 of his 6 targets, though, last week were at least 10 yards downfield. I think there's a little more to him than just converting on splash plays. Sure. And again, 6 targets for 82. Yeah, indoors last week against the bad defense, but they didn't really throw the ball a ton necessarily. Yeah. And again, this is one of those few spots where this is an important game. I think we got to take that when we can get it in terms of playoff implications. So I'm clearly higher on Mooney than you are, but he's not really someone going out of my way to play in a one-off situation. It's more, if I'm stacking this game, he's got to be part of it because frankly, he's going to get more downfield work than Drake London. And I think that's appealing to me.
It's a fair point. So for game stacks, sure, I can do it, but that's about it. Okay, you mentioned Penix. I will not use him. How do you feel?
I think we talked about 7 running backs with a salary of 7,400 or higher, and 6 of them at 8,000 or higher. If you want to play 3 of them, which is really fun, Michael Penix could be the solution. And he burned so many people last week that I don't think people are going to get there. He had 7.38 FanDuel points with that pick, which, came, I think, they were on like the 8 when Kyle Pitts.
He's not Kyle Pitts. He's Gerald Everett. Let's call him by his proper name.
Handed an interception away. And despite that, that's a costly play from an EPA standpoint.
Yeah.
Penix still had really good EPA numbers, even after adjusting for the fact that he played the Giants. Great success rate. I think I talked about this on the show. Maybe it was before the show, but a lot of drops last week for Penix. 7.4% drop rate. The Falcons don't drop a lot of passes. I think that's factored in here. So if you want to go heavy at running back or, Justin Jefferson, there's enough with Penix who could be forced to drop back and throw in this situation. Do I think he's in conversation for QB1 or QB3? No. But I think there's enough here, especially coming off of hey, he just torched anyone who tried to use him last week.
Penix or Love?
What's Love's salary?
76, I think.
That's not a fair.
Well, I think it is because it's like, because it is a little bit lower salary.
He's 78. He's 78.
So $1,200. A little bit lower salary.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, but like I think that we'd both rank Darnold above Penix definitively.
Oh yeah.
Love is like our QB5. So I'm trying to say, is Penix cracking your top 5, basically?
I think for differentiation purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. I won't get.
Do you think he can throw for like 250 and 3?
Maybe.
Because I do.
I don't know. I just feel like they're going to run the ball a lot, which is why I don't mind Bijan Robinson at 89. But the real B-Rob. But yeah.
No, I love Bijan too, and
yeah,
it's a great like kind of thought experiment. Would you play Penix to play Bijan? Like, could you do that?
Interesting.
I think that's interesting.
Sure.
But Bijan to me it's not fair because the salary's not that similar to Saquon's 96 versus 89. But
yeah.
I have Saquon just a tier above. We'll talk about them in a second. But Bijan's really interesting. And I think that if you're going Bijan and Jaden, you've got a pretty fun stat. Even if you don't play a Commanders wide out necessarily, if you can't quite get to Terry, like I think it's okay to play Jaden by himself because he can run.
Yeah, I agree.
So Bijan, top 4 RB play?
Probably. Yeah. I agree that Saquon's higher, but yeah. So let's talk about the Eagles and talk about how we view Saquon Barkley here with Jalen Hurts likely not playing for this week. Looks like it'll be Kenny Pickett starting for the Eagles here. So let's talk about this Eagles offense because they're still pretty heavily favored, still have a pretty high implied total, still a good matchup here against the Cowboys. How should we view the Eagles with Hurts out for this week?
Yeah, so we got a good sample last week, over 80% of the snaps for Kenny Pickett last week in that loss to the Commanders. Pickett threw 24 times for just 143 yards, had 14 completions. His EPA numbers were not good. His passing success rate was 36.7%. Took a lot of sacks as well. I think the one sort of standout thing here is just looking at pass rate over expectation, which accounts for a lot of pre-snap variables such as down and distance, score, time remaining, things like that. They were a minus 13.0% with Pickett under center last week. That's pretty absurd. Their raw pass rate was 37%. With Hurts, that pass rate over expectation is minus 8.3%. Their raw pass rate's around 45%. So this is probably going to wind up sounding a little like hypocritical because I don't like the argument that backup quarterback means more volume for the running back, therefore play the running back. In this instance, I think Saquon Barkley's good enough to do a lot on his own and make touchdowns happen on his own, even if he doesn't get as many red zone trips. But he's also, if he ever gets tackled on the one, he might be able to score. I think that's part of this
once,
too.
as a treat.
For once, yes. Barkley's had 26, 26, 23, 20, 19, and 29 carries the last 6 games for an average of over 140 rushing yards and over 160 scrimmage yards per game in that split. If you look back at their matchup with Dallas earlier this year, Barkley was like in and out with the forearm, played under 50% of the snaps. Just don't look at that necessarily too much unless you're looking at it with a grain of salt. So again, we didn't really need to sell anybody on Mike Evans. I don't think we need to sell too many people on Saquon Barkley.
Nope.
I think the pass catchers, though, I'm not saying I'm there, but it was nice to see how heavily involved they were whenever the team did throw. A.J. Brown had 13 targets from Kenny Pickett for 97 yards and a touchdown. It kind of felt like he was treated like a wide receiver one for the I don't want to say for the first time because that's not fair. But I was like, oh, they're like getting him the ball, which was kind of fun. He's got enough upside on his own to sort of make things happen. 88, though, is a lot, and I don't want to lose sight of that. However, he wasn't the only pass catcher who got sort of peppered. Devontae Smith had a 29% target share from Pickett, specifically with 7 targets from Pickett, 3 downfield targets for Brown, 2 for Smith. But a salary of 7,200, if you could get me like 8 targets for a player I respect as much as Devontae Smith, I think that's interesting. Ultimately, I'm not going to get there. I'm not considering Kenny Pickett. I want to clarify. To me, this was all let's look at this, make sure we can still feel good with Saquon. And even though it doesn't really fit my normal process, I think Saquon is a great play, and I want to go out of my way to get to him. Even with Bijan at a $700 savings, I want to get to Saquon this week.
I want to kind of back up your point, saying like this may sound hypocritical, but I think that it's a different situation. Like going to a backup quarterback with a tremendous infrastructure around him than it is a typical backup quarterback situation where it's one of the best offensive lines in football. It is one of the top receiver tandems in football, and a guy in Saquon Barkley who frankly was awesome with quarterbacks worse than Kenny Pickett when he's with the Giants. Maybe no. Dan Jones is better than Kenny Pickett, I think, but not great situations regardless.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I think that Saquon is still a tremendous play. We talked about him with Bijan before, where it's still like, yeah, I'd probably go Saquon over Bijan. I agree, and I don't think we're being hypocritical in doing that. I'm not going to get to the pass catchers. So I think that there's Addison's there. Garrett Wilson's right there. So I think there's enough options around Devontae Smith, but I wholeheartedly agree with you that like Saquon, despite the backup quarterback, still going to be an awesome play this week.
That's all I really wanted to make sure because that was the only sort of hesitation, and I think the volume's going to be there. And again, he's just so efficient and can make things happen. So wheels up for Saquon.
I didn't have to sell. You didn't have to sell me on Saquon. I might have to sell you on the Bills though, and their pass catchers. So let's talk about them because I got a pretty high total in that game as they take on the Jets. And the Bills can't be the 1 seed, which does decrease motivation, but because the Ravens won on Wednesday, that means the Ravens could still be the 2 seed. And if that happens, the Ravens would host a playoff game against the Bills. If I'm the Bills, I don't want that. So I actually have motivation to still win this game. If they win, they clinch the 2 seed. So there is still motivation here. And I think they'll push. They might not reveal their full game plan, as Josh Allen literally said in the post-game press conference after the Patriots game, but like they're going to push. And I also do think it helps that they're getting a bit more concentrated at pass catcher right now. We have a 4-game sample on this team with Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, and Keon Coleman all active and fully healthy. In those 4 games, Khalil Shakir leads with a 24% target share, but Kincaid is actually second at 22%. He also has a 27% deep target share, which is most in the team in this 4-game sample, and is tied for the lead in red zone targets at 19%. Kincaid has not been good this year. His max is 53 receiving yards, but he has the building blocks. Could throw back to an old heat check word for upside. I'm willing to go there again at $5,600 or $5,800, despite the fact that maybe I should not. Shakir's too high for me at 65. I don't feel the need to go there. Keon Coleman potentially could be a salary saver at 54. Just a 15% target share in this span, but 24% of the deep targets, and he is tied with Kincaid in red zone target share. You know, I wouldn't go with him in non-Allen lineups, but I think that like you could consider him at times when you're going Allen. As for Josh Allen, $9,100. Both his hands are hurt, which is not ideal. So I don't think we'll see a ton of running. And that's why, similar to last week, he's not as big of a priority as he has been at times. In the backfield, James Cook, 120 plus yards from scrimmage in 3 of the past 4 games, 29 in the other. He is very dependent on efficiency to get there. And I don't want a guy dependent on efficiency when his salary is $8,800. So for me, Kincaid is a very good play. Allen is solid. Keon Coleman an option in my Josh Allen lineups, maybe a Garrett Wilson bring back, something like that. How are you viewing the Bills on your end for this game?
It's fine. It's
Mhm.
just a lot of fine.
Does Kincaid transcend fine for you or no?
No.
Okay. This
I've
might be
seen,
why you're okay with Payne Durham, is because I'm higher on
yeah.
Kincaid.
Like, I understand the case and the quote unquote building blocks, but this
Yeah.
team is like if you kind of jam together like the Chiefs and the Packers, where it's like they have four guys who kind of get, I guess really three who sort of
Would you
get
use
like,
Travis Kelce at $5,800?
okay, let's not. Um, like I'm fine. Like I'm again, fine is sort of the key word for me. I'm highest on Kincaid. I think
Okay.
Shakir, the fact that like we just don't want to go there, despite the fact that he is sort of the quote unquote safest option in terms of getting volume is pretty telling. Yeah, it's
Sure.
got a lot to do with him, but it's also kind of okay. A 24% target share doesn't do enough for me, despite
Mhm.
being attached to Josh Allen. Then you go like James Cook in the back, like they'll throw the ball to running backs. They kind of just do everything. If you look at red zone shares, they're dispersed. Like I don't want to get bogged down. Now on a 9-game slate, I'm more receptive to being wrong because you have to be in order to
Yeah.
be right sometimes. So Kincaid's clearly like the top option for me.
Okay.
But how many other Bills do you think you're gonna play on more than
Oh,
15% of your like
0.
any? Yeah. So
0.
and that includes Allen.
He'll probably be around 25.
Yeah, I think
Because I
he's
guess I right now I'm kind of leaning towards like down the middle of like each guy gets 25.
so that's
Darnold,
Jaden.
Baker, Jaden, Allen.
That's what I would like. I don't want to play Michael Penix. I don't want to play Jordan Love.
Yeah.
Um, I like to play no more than 4 quarterbacks. That's just
Yeah.
how I like to do things. So those guys are probably going to get lopped off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Josh Allen is interesting, especially if people were kind
Sure.
of turned off after the dud. But yeah, I'm not loving the Bills that much this week.
Yeah. We're on the same page there for the most part. I'm just higher on Kincaid and similar on Allen, it sounds like. And I will have at least one Keon Coleman lineup
I
as
just
well.
have more.
But
I think I just have more Dalton Kincaid fatigue.
I'll never get tired, baby. Back from the well one more time. Well, it's more than one because he'll have playoffs too.
Back to
So
the
a
well,
lot.
maybe.
Oh, wow, that was pretty good. Okay, I hate that. Okay, weather for this week, there is a lot. There are 5 spots with wind speeds currently at 10 miles per hour higher. That is Cleveland for the Browns and Dolphins. Could also rain there. Could also rain in Washington for the Commanders Falcons. 13 mile per hour winds there. 13 mile per hour winds in Philly for the Eagles and Cowboys. 12 miles per hour in Jacksonville for the Jags and the Titans. And 11 in Tampa Bay for the Bucks and Panthers. So 2 of the games with high totals also have wind. Great. There is some rain in the forecast for the Bills and Jets in Buffalo. 9 mile per hour winds there too. So I think this kind of just pushes me a bit more towards Packers, Vikings, maybe
You
Sam
get that
Darnold.
indoor game.
Yeah, Sam Darnold
Indoor
keeps
game
inching up,
should
and I hate it.
matter.
So yeah, we know where the ball is going with Darnold too. So let's talk about it and begin our play-by-play discussion for today. Let's start at quarterback, Brandon. As we go there, we've talked about having 4 guys we really want to use this week. Those being Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, with Jordan Love, and then for you, Michael Penix is the other fringe considerations. I'm cool with keeping it there. I don't feel the need to expand beyond that. Are you cool with that too? When all is said and done?
I am cool with that. The
Okay.
real question is going to be how I ultimately wind up ranking them and building, let's say, my main lineup. Who do I get to? I like to start with quarterback when I do that. I'm
Yeah.
not sure I'll be able to. I might kind of
Yeah.
do it
Sure.
with like Saquon and go from
Sure.
there. I would be very receptive to a 25% split across those 4 quarterbacks, like you said.
Yeah.
Now, Allen's got concerns. Daniels has weather concerns. Darnold doesn't really have, I mean, he's facing a tough adjusted pass defense for what that's worth, but how are you ranking the 4? I know you said 25%, but like,
Yeah. Kind of feel like if you give me an inch with the weather, I go Daniels first. But I haven't gotten that inch yet. If you give me an inch with the weather, like if you can like just turn the wind down 3 miles per hour, I go Daniels 1.
Okay. I think so too.
Okay.
It's really difficult. Like, it's nice to have 4, and
Yeah,
just to be transparent, I'm probably gonna play pretty equal splits. So for me to sit here and say like, here's my rankings, I don't say it's disingenuous, but it's just kind of not how I feel like I have to do it this week. Baker.
If
I
I'm
keep going
being
back to Baker.
realistic, I think my rankings are probably Daniels 1, Darnold 2, just because indoor game environment. Baker 3, Allen 4, I think is my ranking right now.
It doesn't sound bad, although Baker, if you give me like a downtick in the if it wins like 7, which I don't know, for anybody who like doesn't really listen to us often, like why are these guys arguing over like because it matters. Like long-term samples say that wind as it increases decreases like probability, but I really like Baker. I might go him. He might be my QB2. He's got 3 pass catchers I'm willing to stack him with, plus a running back, and doesn't face a defense as tough as Darnold.
Yeah, that's fair. I can see that for sure. Okay, but our guys this week are Daniels, Baker or Darnold, and then Allen. I think that's a fair list for this week. Running back, how big of a priority is Saquon at 96 for you?
Big, but I'm not going to jeopardize multiple spots on my lineup to play Saquon.
Okay, I agree with you there because go ahead.
I'll make a concession.
Sure,
but I don't want to make 2.
Yeah, like using Jalen Coker gets me Saquon Barkley. Fine, that's fine. I'll do it. Jalen Coker plus Payne Durham or something like that. Like, nah, I'm not. That's too far for me. But I think that he's good enough to make the one concession for him. Is he a full tier above Bijan for you? Because he is for me.
Yeah, he is.
Okay. If you just look at like their full games this year, Saquon's at 140.9 yards from scrimmage per game, and Bijan's at 107.3. Now Bijan's been a lot better recently. He's been going over 100 yards from scrimmage pretty often, but I think that like his max yards from scrimmage might actually be below Saquon's average. Let me check that quick. I think he's been around like 130 as his max. His max is 140. He's been the 140s 3 times. Good job, Jim. But he's never been above 145, and Saquon's average is 140. So I think that even considering salary, Saquon's a full tier above for me.
Yeah, I think that's pretty. Like, if I have 95 left for a final spot, I can play Bijan and if I can't like squeeze down a defense anymore, but I really want to get to Saquon over Bijan.
Same. Skipping over James Cook, no Kamara even if he plays. Yeah. Let's talk about the lower 8K range. Let's Jonathan Taylor at 84. Josh Jacobs 83, Devon Achane 82, Bucky Irving 8,000. I said before I had Bucky 1 in this tier, and I think I'm still there. I still put Bucky there, not caught up in the moment. How do you rank this tier?
I was really not looking forward to this part because it's going to be difficult. I think the main takeaway is going to be that Achane's last of the 4.
I agree.
With Jacobs probably the most likely to be 3rd.
Okay.
And then I don't want to say a coin flip between JT and Bucky. The thing for me with JT is we know for certain how good the role is and has been.
Sure.
And it's a good matchup. This game matters for the Colts. Bucky, though, boy, he
better offense.
Yeah. So it's between one of the two. What's JT and Bucky with Saquon? They get 61-60 left with the value defense already. That's a Michael
really? With the defense. Oof. That's tough.
Well, that's a double That's a Coker McMillan. Let me get this stack.
Yeah.
I know this is multiple Buccaneers, but we got to kind of do that. 6,600 for quarterback, receiver, tight end. You could probably get up to. Can you get up to Darnold?
Yeah. Yeah, you can. Pretty easily,
6,050.
Like using 3 thin receivers at that point.
But you're getting 3 of the top
3
6
superstar running backs.
Yeah. Which is another reason why I think Aaron Jones is just going to be someone I get to a lot, because it's going to be really easy to build a lineup like that and be like, let me save 1,000 from JT and play Aaron Jones.
Correct.
Which, JT coming off of 9,000 yards and 400 touchdowns last week is kind of silly to say, but I like Aaron Jones a lot.
So Aaron Jones at 74, considering salary, where does he rank among running backs for you?
I think close to RB1.
I agree.
He's the most playable of them.
Yeah, I think most playable is the right word.
We talked about the elevated snap rate. He's due for more touchdown regression. Game of the week. It's really, you'd be overthinking it to sort of avoid him. And I think that, I want massive ceilings. I'm not sure he's got the true upside of a Bucky Irving with Bucky probably's got 202 in him. Yeah. Like scrimmage yards and touchdowns. Yeah. JT just showed us he still got that. I don't think it's not really Etienne's fault, but I don't think he's got that necessarily.
He was pretty close to it last week. But I agree with you overall. I agree with you overall.
That's true.
Yeah. I think in this matchup against the Browns, I don't think he has that. So
So I'm going, I don't know, he might be my RB1, I guess, by that definition.
Think I'm leaning that direction as well with him. So there's enough there at 74 where I'll be pretty high on Aaron Jones, and that could bite me, but I do think he has upside. I think it's a tremendous game. He's got yardage upside too. Like maybe not the same as JT, but enough where I like him. I also think, again, if we go back to, our overall thoughts were, for me at least, I want to focus on good offenses. If I go Jaden Daniels and then I go Bucky Irving and then I go Aaron Jones and Dalton Kincaid, I'm kind of getting just my preferred exposure to each offense. And I think that's pretty attractive to me as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other 7,000 range backs you want to discuss? There aren't really that many.
Yeah, we talked about Chuba.
Yeah.
I'm not going with Rico.
Nope.
So I'd say Brian Robinson's the next name, and I kind of don't want to play him if I don't have to.
I will use him, but I want to keep it around 20%. The reason I will use him is because they forgive him for the fumbles last week, put him back into his previous role. And even when you include last week, if you look at the games without Eckler, he is at 87.5 yards scrimmage per game. That's not amazing, but it's fine on the slate. So, and that could get better. So he's fine. I don't adore him. Let's say I just want to get to Justin Jefferson and he allows me to get there more. Sure, I'll do that. That's fine. But I think that he's kind of a fine, I'll do it guy more than anything else this week.
Yeah, I think that's the case. He's more than Jerome Ford for me.
I agree
for sure, but it's a similar conclusion on Ford. It's fine if I have to, but again, I don't want to do it if I don't have to, and I don't think I have to. So,
okay. Any other 6,000 range backs you want to discuss, or should you just tie the knot on Tyjae Spears?
Let's go to Spears.
Okay. We've discussed the studs in the slates, our desire to Saquon, stuff like that. Has that changed your view of Tyjae Spears at all? You were already high on him, so I'm not changing that, but has your view shifted on him at all?
It just comes down to that opportunity cost. That's a big. So I said I got that Darnold with Barkley, JT, Bucky, and then that McMillan Coker stack, and then for a receiver and tight end, 6,050 on average to play a tight end and a receiver to round out the lineup. If I go from even Bucky, so not JT or not Barkley, and I play Tyjae, That's going to be 7,150. So that's like, that puts Bowers in the conversation.
Right.
Or frankly, that's like, I mean, it's not quite Bowers and Addison or something like that.
Right.
But boy, in that perspective, that changes things. So it is opportunity cost. You said close to 100, didn't you?
Yeah.
Are you still there?
Yeah. Very much so. Yep.
Yeah, you're giving up one running back. I mean, because we treat the flex like a running back spot, unless we can't. You're giving up one of those, but for how many studs there are, I think Spears is the value play if there's no Tony Pollard.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so my loves the running back be Spears with no Pollard as the given. If we assume that Spears does go, or that Pollard does go, then I'm going Aaron Jones. I'm going Bucky for tournaments. He's not a cash game play, I don't think, but I like him a lot for tournaments. And then probably Saquon. Like, maybe that's aggressive, but I think I'd rather make concessions at receiver than running back. So to me, it'd be Jones, Bucky, Saquon. What about you?
I'd go Saquon, JT, and Jones.
I can endorse that. That's fine. I prefer Bucky, but I get that's kind of wish casting on my part.
Cash game, JT or Bucky?
JT. Yeah.
Okay. That's probably where it's probably the difference.
Okay, receiver. You can only get to Saquon Barkley or Justin Jefferson. Who do you go with?
Saquon.
I agree. Because I can go to Addison.
Yeah.
Like, I agree. But like Jefferson and Saquon, that's worth trying, right? To get to, especially if we have Spears. Like,
so you remember when I said you get Spears in there and you have 71.
Payne Durham? Please don't bring this back to Payne Durham.
You get 53 for a tight end.
Oh, okay. So I don't know.
I mean,
is Brenton Strange around there?
Oh,
yeah.
Can you get
play Strange at 51? Chig is 54. Yeah.
You can only play the Panthers defense then.
But I think what we're saying,
but I can bump down from I can go from JT and go down from there.
So what we're saying is that it's worth trying to get to a Saquon plus Jefferson lineup because Jefferson is that good, correct?
I think so, yeah.
Yep, I agree. I think the rest of the 8,000 range is fine. I like Evans and Baker stacks, but I'm not going to have a ton of him outside of that because I'd prefer Jefferson if I'm in that range in a non-Baker lineup. Like Adams, 81. I know he's had blow-up games, but like that's not super attracted to me. So really, it's just about Jefferson up here for me. How about for you? Outside of, again, Baker lineups.
Yeah, Baker lineups, you want Evans. I'm not playing Brown. So yeah, I'm with you. Same page.
How does Terry grade out for you at 79? It's a high salary, but we like his quarterback a lot. We like that game enough. Good market shares, amazing red zone share. Where did he settle in for you at 79?
Yeah, great red zone share, but also an even better like money target share because he gets those like deep passes near the goal line and in the end zone, which is sick.
Yeah.
But he's similar to Mike Evans, where it's like in stacks, I'll be there. I'm not playing Terry outside of stacks. I don't think I'd necessarily force Terry with Bijan stacks. Like if I play Bijan, I'm not like going out of my way to get the Terry.
Yeah.
So I need to have Jaden, I think.
We have not discussed Jags Titans yet. Bad defense in this game. Good receivers in Brian Thomas Jr. 75. Well, Kevin Ridley, I guess I'll put in that range too. But salary is high for BTJ. We do have alternatives like Addison, Garrett Wilson below him. Are you going to get to Thomas this week or no?
It's such an interesting one because I don't want to play anyone tied to his current quarterback, but his role and his talent are just sort of off the charts.
Yeah.
It is kind of like he's not getting enough love for how good he's been. But his last 3 single game target shares are 40%, 33, and 37%, which is like gnarly. He gets high leverage work. He's got 4 straight games with double digit targets. like he's probably the type of play who I'm like, yeah, but the offense, whatever. And then, he gets 12 targets and has 107 yards and a touchdown. It's like, I could have just played this guy.
Yeah.
Like, and I did.
75 is not outrageous as a salary.
It's not. It's like on the edge of like, if he were 71, if you were in the Drake London spot, I'd be like, I'm probably going to play him.
Yeah.
So
like if I had $7,500 left for a receiver slot, I'm not reconfiguring. I'm just going to plug him in and feel good about it. Yeah. But like that doesn't happen super often, which is unfortunate.
Thomas or Addison?
Addison.
Yeah. Thomas or Garrett Wilson without Devontae?
Wilson.
Yeah. But not by much. Or at least in the case of...
He's worth asking, which says a lot about him because I just love those guys, frankly.
It says a lot here. I mean, maybe we'll get into this, but Brian Thomas Jr. or Tyreek Hill?
BTJ.
Like, that's nuts.
I know, right? It is weird, but that's true, frankly. So, okay. We get down to this tier of Drake London, Jordan Addison, Garrett Wilson. I think Addison's number one here. Mm-hmm. You could sell me on Wilson over him if Devontae were to sit. But I'd
hear that out, but I'd probably still go Addison due to, again, like if you kind of cherry pick or look at like some reasons, his market shares aren't that much different than Justin Jefferson's, and he's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. In the games with Hawkinson back, 24% target share, 35% deep, 28% inside the red zone. He's had 133 and 162 yards in the past 5 games. Like that's awesome for his salary. So I think both he and Wilson would be core plays if there were no Adams, is what I would say, I guess. But I prefer Addison. Okay.
Yep.
Jude the Dude, not getting there. 68. The middle 6,000 range kind of stinks. Yeah, Jaden Reed 67 in a great game. Jacoby Myers, who I keep trying to make work and just doesn't happen. Khalil Shakir, Darnell Mooney. I don't feel super drawn towards any of these guys. Do you?
I'm okay with Mooney and Stacks. I'm not like completely out on Shakir if I really feel like I want to play Josh Allen, but I'm still not like super likely to do that, even in Allen lineups. Ridley revenge game.
I will get to him in a second. He's not in this discussion for me.
Oh, okay. Well, he's on your screen, so.
Oh, there. No, he's not.
So anybody here you like? I guess it sounds like no. Can we move on?
Like I'll have minimal Jaden Reed and Darnold or Love lineups.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe some Mooney in Daniels, but that's it. But Ridley, I think, is like viable as like a standalone play at 63. The Jaguars defense is abominable. His salary is $6,300. In the games with Rudolph, he's made 5 starts, 24% overall target share, but 65% deep target share for Ridley. For $6,300, that's pretty good in this matchup. So I think that he's actually a solid play, and he'd be way more than solid if it weren't just the worst game you've ever imagined. So that's where I settle on him. Where are you on Ridley?
Yeah, he's fine. He's the kind of play I could like default into falling back on, and then if he gets 5 targets for 41, it's brutal.
Yeah. Yep, that could happen for sure. Okay.
Calvin Ridley or Josh Downs.
So it sounds like there actually is a shot that Richardson sits this week. I thought that maybe he might go, but based on comments today, it sounds like maybe it will be Flacco. I'd probably go with Downs over Ridley. Just because, like, in theory, Downs is a similar ceiling to Ridley, right? Like, he had 109 yards in a touchdown earlier on this year. Like, I think he has a similar ceiling, right?
I think so. I think he's interesting. I've been a Downs guy, but just not with Anthony Richardson under center. So
correct. Yep.
And you don't need as much pushback from the Giants because this game matters for the Colts. So
right. Okay. So I go Downs over Ridley, but I do like both. Elsewhere in this range, not really going to Waddle, I think.
So we got 3 guys who are injured. Yeah, not like really considering Watson here, but Olave and Waddle, like these guys could have been 7,500 if everything was going great.
Sure.
we're having this conversation over Calvin Ridley, Josh Downs. Does this change your opinion on Waddle and Olave if they're full to go?
Lowers me on them because I have good enough alternatives and a lot of reasons to be concerned about them still.
Okay.
I know it's kind of the reverse of what you were asking, but that's where I settle in. Okay. 5,000 range, McMillan 59, Romeo Dobbs 56. Like that's kind of, and then Jalen Coker at 51, Alameda Zacchaeus 52. Those are the only guys I can actually see myself using in the 5,000 range. Is there anyone else you want to add to that list?
No.
Okay. And we're highest in McMillan, right?
Yeah. Are you chasing like Dontavian Wicks at all?
Not really.
Yeah.
Like, it's been better for him recently than it was. Like, he seems like I thought he had the yips earlier, frankly. He might not have that anymore, but like, what's the best case scenario yardage wise for him?
Yeah, that's kind of what I come back to.
Yeah. So to me, it's McMillan first by a pretty significant margin. And then Dobbs?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Jalen Coker a lot, but I have to be honest with myself.
Yeah. I think Coker's fine. If I need to say salary, I'm willing to make a concession on him. That's fine. But it is making a concession. Okay. Loves for you at receiver. Who you got?
For me, I mean, I'd say Jefferson, but realistically, Jordan Addison, Jalen McMillan. I think I might have talked myself into Brian Thomas as a love.
Okay, interesting. Don't mind that.
He's close, but for sure, Addison and McMillan.
Addison, McMillan for me as well. Might wind up going Garrett Wilson at 69 if there's no Adams.
If there's no Adams, he's the third love.
If Flacco plays, Downs would be the third love for me, I think.
Man, you've come a long way but it makes sense.
Salary came down.
Yep.
A lot of passing. Good matchup. Yeah.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Tight end. Are you willing to sacrifice in order to get to Brock Bowers at 76 or no?
It honestly depends on what type of, like, if we get Tyjae Spears, and I can build a Sam Darnold lineup with Addison and maybe like Dobbs, and I have salary, I'll sacrifice like, I could have played. It's scary saying this, like, I could have got the Jefferson instead of Addison if I just shifted things around. So I'll play Bowers instead.
Yeah.
I'm realistically not going to have a lot of Brock Bowers.
Same.
Mostly due to the fact that it takes a little bit of differentiation in the lineup construction. Now, if maybe I build like a Brian Thomas lineup with a Jalen Coker or Dobbs, and I can flip the salary on Thomas to Bowers and then play a lower salary tight end, maybe I could do that. But I don't anticipate playing a lot of Bowers. Is that silly in the context of this whole slate?
I don't know if it's silly, but I know that I'll do the same thing as you. Because realistically, like, I always view the other positions as higher priorities, especially when we have Jefferson, Saquon, Bijan, Bucky, Jones, like all these like guys with high salaries who I actively want to use. It's harder for me to get there.
Yeah,
like I just know myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you compare him to what we always do with the high salary tight ends, if you compare him to receivers, even in a weaker 7,000 range, Brian Thomas has a higher pure ceiling. Addison,
100%. Aaron Jones.
Yeah. So it's nothing against him. It's more the landscape.
I agree. I frankly think it's most likely that my highest salary tight end is Dalton Kincaid at $5,800, which means I'm skipping over, and Jokic just got ruled out, so no him. Basically skipping over both Bowers and Jonnu. I just feel like I can do better.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Kincaid 58. Final pitch for him again is super high implied total. 22% target share in the games with Cooper and Coleman. Deep work, some red zone work. I know it has not worked out, but it should eventually, he said, as he continued to lose money on Dalton Kincaid. I think there's enough there to be high on him. I think Hawkinson is also like good at 57. And I'm never as high on him as you are, but I think he's good for this week. So I like both those guys, frankly. Hawkinson or Kincaid for you?
Like pure process, not accounting for quarterback or stacks. It's going to be Kincaid by a smidge, but I'm going to be all over this like Vikings game. So I'll probably have more Hawkinson.
Okay, that's fair. And I think the process of lumping Hawkinson in with stacks there is wise. So
has not scored yet this year.
So he's does the T and TJ stand for Trey McBride Jr. Hawkinson?
No.
Oh, well, we tried. Okay. Chigakonkwo, $5,400. I had a friend text me to ask if he should use Chigakonkwo or Jake Ferguson last week, and I am thanking my lucky stars. He did not listen to me when I said to use Jake Ferguson. I'm a dummy. In the games with Mason Rudolph, Chig's target share is 19.5%, 19% deep. Like, that's pretty good. He's talented, facing the Jags. I capitulate and say that Chig is a solid play. Where do you settle him at $5,400?
Yeah, I like him. I've written a lot of DFS content this week, and Chig's been part of that. Well, just sort of general sleeper stuff too. But yeah, his role's spiking. That's great. It's kind of strange because he had such a breakout like rookie year and then just fell off.
The face of the earth. Yeah.
There's a lot to like about Chig, and I don't want to say he's the reason that like I'm lower on Kincaid or something, but you have other options, so I'm not out over my skis specifically just to play Dalton Kincaid. But 2 straight games with double-digit target shares, 17.6% target share in games with Rudolph. I don't know if you said that one. I wasn't listening that closely. You might have, but it's good here. So make the most of an ugly game.
Can you like schedule a Slack message to me for like 10 a.m. on Sunday to say, make sure you don't forget Chigakonkwo?
That's the kind of stuff that might happen. With
so
Chig.
I don't want to forget him. I think he's a solid play. Brenton Strange, $5,100. Same game. Good target shares without Evan Ingram still. 15.8% in games without Ingram. It's 20% in the games without Christian Kirk and Gabe Davis as well. Like, last week was bad. And like that can happen with Mac Jones. I just think that there's enough there to be okay with him. Chig probably has a better ceiling. So I probably should prefer Chig, but I'm at least receptive to Strange. What about you?
Yeah, receptive, I think, is a good word there, especially if you're playing like Tajay or Calvin Ridley. Maybe get that some correlation in case there's offensive life on both sides of the ball here. But Chig over, like, I mean, if there's a tight end who let me look and make sure I don't sound silly because we don't have George Kittle. Kelsey doesn't really do this either. If there's a tight end who scores from 50 yards out this week, I am least surprised that it's Chigakonkwo.
That's a good way to think of it, and I think you're right. Okay. That sold me. That was very effective. Should be a salesperson. Kyle Pitts, no. Zach Ertz, no. Any other tight ends you want to discuss? Like maybe your boy or no?
Who's my boy? Payne Durham?
Yeah.
I think I made a case. He just took over the Cade Otton role. He's not going to be necessarily as athletic or as good, but high implied team total, could score a touchdown. And if Bowers is just okay and nobody else really has a big game, and Durham gets you 10.1 FanDuel points, you're vibing. I will just kind of I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. I think for me, loves are going to be. Well, go ahead.
No. I was going to throw out another name, but I chose not to, and you're not going to make me say it, so we can move on.
Okay, cool. I have a hard. You really talked me to Chig because I was going to say my loves were Kincaid and Hawkinson, but Chig is kind of like elbowing his way in that tier. I'm going to go Kincaid and Hawkinson because like my process is high implied team total at tight end. They've got good roles, but Chig is there. He's in that range for me.
Yeah. I think those are the three that really stand out to me. It's not to be, again, dismissive of Bowers, but those are the three that I keep circling back on.
All right. Let's take my first look at defense the entire week. All right. Oh, Raiders are 32 against Spencer Rattler. Come on, man.
That's the one I keep plugging in.
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Don't need to look at anything else. I would use some Giants if Flacco starts, frankly. There's more passing volume. Joe Flacco made a lot of mistakes. That's why he got benched for Richardson. I would have some of that. I think that's fine, right? Okay.
That's not bad. You can do worse.
Jags against Mason Rudolph. The Jags stink, but so does Mason Rudolph. Wow, we got a lot of good defense this week.
Yep.
Cowboys against Kenny Pickett? I do that.
Yeah, I'm not against that one. My fear is they don't get a lot of dropbacks, but Pickett can turn it over and get sacked for sure.
Saints are also 4,000 against the Raiders. I will not spend above 4K at defense this week. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, Titans are 41 against the Jaguars, but
yeah,
probably rather just reshuffle the rest of them.
My love is the Raiders, though.
That's the one I keep going to,
yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts for you now that we've discussed the entire Week 17 main DFS slate?
There's a lot of home run hitters on the board, and sometimes it can be tempting to go a little more balanced and make sure you're getting a lot of like higher quote unquote floor plays. But I think, again, keyword this week for me was concession. I'm okay making a concession with someone I don't love on a 9-game slate to make sure I love everyone else.
Yep. I think that makes a lot of sense. Get that upside in there, prioritize it because it's important on a slate where there's a lot of upside available to us. That is all that we have here for today and this week here on the Heat Check. Again, we're back with you again next week, same schedule, Friday at noon Eastern, breaking down the Week 18 main NFL DFS slate. So subscribe to the YouTube page if you want to watch that live, again, noon Eastern there, but also check us out on the FanDuel Research podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts. Brandon, people have any questions for you on the socials, where can they find you there?
I'm on X at Gdula13, GDULA13, and I'm on Blue Sky at Gdula.
And I'm on both X and Blue Sky at JimSannes. You can also find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. Happy New Year to all of you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Week 17 DFS slate. Have fun. We'll talk to you once again next year to break down the Week 18 slate. This has been the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.